Welcome back to another edition of the Jacob and Jacob podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Pear, joined by my co-host, Jacob Brobum. And today
What's up? Let's go.
we'll be discussing the 10-part documentary, The Last Dance, about the greatest basketball player of all time, Michael Jordan. But before we start, me and Jacob have a little announcement. So if you haven't already, follow us on Instagram at _ Jacob and Jacob podcast, run by our social media
Like the
coordinator,
posts.
Hunter Kimmel. Also, in the future, we have several interviews coming up. So make sure you like, subscribe, and comment on this video and videos in the future and in the past.
Also, turn on notifications so you know when the videos are coming. Next week,
Yeah.
there's going to be a bunch, so get ready.
All right, let's get right into it. All right, Jacob, did The Last Dance live up to the hype?
Absolutely. It was very well done. Props to everybody that was a part of making it. Props to the Bulls for allowing the footage to be released and all the players that were involved. I think that it was incredible. It gave you a really good insight of what happened, of really what transpired with the Bulls and behind the scenes footage that no one had really seen before, and it gave everyone another side to the story besides just the championships and the winning and the rings. So I think it was incredible, well done, well made, great job by ESPN.
I totally agree. Look, I saw an article a few weeks ago. The director of The Last Dance, Jason Here, came to Michael Jordan. He said, "Look, Mike, all the kids nowadays haven't really ever seen you play. Maybe only on highlights, maybe only on NBA TV. And Michael Jordan doesn't want to feel old at all. So we put this documentary out there just to show everyone that he's still the greatest basketball player of all time. I know people think they're LeBron could be the greatest, but they're delusional. LeBron is not the greatest basketball player of all time. LeBron James isn't even close to Michael Jordan. Kobe's better than LeBron James. I mean, look, Michael Jordan's work ethic was just outstanding. Look, he pushed his teammates. He did everything right that you could think of in basketball. His basketball IQ was off the charts. He was a great, I mean, some people might not say he's a great teammate, but he pushed his teammates, and that was the formula for winning the 6 championships that he won in his heyday.
I mean, I agree with you about the MJ over LeBron, absolutely. And I think LeBron, an incredible player. In my opinion, he's the second best to ever play. And I wouldn't say he's that far behind Jordan, but what Jordan was able to do, the amount of rings he was able to win, his success in the league was, hey, LeBron has been very successful, don't get me wrong, but Jordan was just on a new level. His competitiveness and his eagerness to win stands out above anybody else's. And I mean, if I had to put a second player with the same competitiveness and eagerness to win, I would probably say Kobe, just because he sort of resembled what Michael Jordan wanted to do. He always wanted to win. He always fought hard every game. And he always wanted to be on the court. You saw with Jordan, even when he was hurt, he wanted to play. If it weren't for the doctors, he might have played through some injuries. But yeah, I think that MJ, definitely the best of all time, and his competitiveness is just on a new level.
Look, today's difference between today's players and Michael Jordan in his era. Look, LeBron James, you watch a Lakers game, or in previous years, you watch a Heat or Cavs game, he was taking plays off during the game. He wasn't playing the full experience. Michael Jordan didn't take a play off. It was incredible. As you saw in the highlights, he didn't take one defensive play off. He didn't take one offensive series off. It was just unbelievable. And LeBron's just not like that. And also, like, growing up watching Kobe, he didn't take a play off either. He was a how many times all defensive team player. And look, LeBron isn't on the same level of either of them. LeBron's close to Kobe, but Kobe's better than LeBron.
And also, you see today in the NBA, it'll be like LeBron James out, rest. That did not happen with Michael Jordan or any of the players, frankly, in that
What's
era.
load management in the 90s? What is load management?
Those players, they didn't do it. If the coach of the Bulls, if Phil Jackson went to Michael Jordan and said, why don't you take tonight off, rest, heal up, Michael Jordan would be like, are you crazy? Are you kidding me? Think he would do that? No chance, no way in hell. And today you see it all throughout the league, and it's like, it just shows you how much the game has changed and how different it is today than it was back then, and sort of the difference between the competitiveness and the eagerness to win of the players. And I think the players today, they want to win. They have that competitiveness to them, but just nothing like MJ had and the players of that era had.
Look, I think it was the second or third episode. Michael Jordan's hurt. He comes back late in the season. Doctor goes, look, Mike, you can only play 14 minutes a game or however many minutes it was. He goes, I'm going to do it. I hate losing. He got his team in the playoffs. If you told LeBron James that, I don't think he played it in today's game. I think he'd take the time off. Like last year when he had that groin injury, could have played a little bit later before he was able to come back. He didn't do it. He didn't care about winning as much as Mike did. Not the same player.
Yeah, and Michael Jordan, the one season that you're talking about where he was on that minutes restriction, the Bulls, it didn't really seem like Jerry Krause wanted them to make the playoffs. They wanted to be like maybe that would be their year off where they would sort of miss the playoffs and get a lottery pick and see where they went from there, maybe bring in another piece to the puzzle. But MJ was like, even in the 14 minutes he played, he gave everything he had, every single ounce of sweat on his body, every single thing he had. And he wouldn't let it happen. He would not let his team lose. He wanted to win. He said every single game, I don't care if we're 10-50 and we have 22 games left in the season, I'm going to try my best to win all 22. I don't care about draft picks. I don't care about the best player in the NBA that's coming in the draft next year. He wanted to win every single game.
And he was in a win now mode. He wasn't in a, as you said, he wasn't in like a Sam Hinkie, we're going to tank now. He would have laughed in Sam Hinkie's face, in my opinion. He would have hated tanking. But look, he, as you said earlier, he gave every ounce of sweat he had. Every game. Didn't matter if he was playing 14 minutes, even if he was playing 40 minutes. Even in that flu game, he was food poisoning now. He was
Yeah.
sensational. Absolutely sensational. It was unreal. But let's get back to another topic or something that you said earlier. Phil Jackson. Does he get enough credit for his 11 championship rings?
I mean, he's the best coach in the NBA's history. I think obviously it was incredible. You saw what he did with the Bulls and then how he was able to resemble that with the Lakers. And I mean, maybe he's not given the credit he deserves. He also coached some great teams. And you have to ask yourself, does he win the rings without those players? I don't think so, but I still think you can't deny that he's an incredible coach. And maybe those teams would have won championships with another coach, but maybe without him, they're not able to win 6, they only win 4. Or with the Lakers, they're not able to win 5, they only win 3. And I think that he's just a coach. He pushes his players, he pushes his team. And I think that he's a little doesn't deserve as much credit as I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. He doesn't get as much credit as he deserves because people sort of overlook him for the great players, but I think he was a key thing. You talked about it. You saw with Jordan how in the end of episode 10 when he says, maybe we would have all come back if Phil had decided that, you know what, he will come back after Jerry Reinsdorf said, you know what, come back for one more year. We'll take you back. Maybe Pippen, maybe Rodman, they would have came back, but that clearly wasn't what he wanted to do. He knew that Jerry Krause did not want him in Chicago anymore, as he said. So, yeah, I think that he sort of was a part of the glue to that team because Jordan said if Phil came back, then he and the other players probably would have came back. So it showed that they played for him and that they respected him as their coach. So, yeah, I think that he is deserving of more credit.
All right, I got a lot to say about Phil Jackson. So let me say it, okay? Phil Jackson, what's his nickname? You know it?
Hey,
The
tell
Zen
it to the
Master.
people. Tell it to the people.
The Zen Master. There's a reason he has that nickname. Look, you saw earlier in the documentary, Dennis Rodman goes, Phil, I need time off. I need to go to Vegas. Every single coach, head coach, in every level of sports probably would have said, no, you're not going to Vegas in the middle of the season. But Phil Jackson realized Dennis is Dennis. He's a very valuable asset to the Bulls. He needed the time off, and he gave it to him, which was just incredible. Phil Jackson knows how to work with stars, which a lot of coaches in the NBA don't. You see with Brett Brown, he can't handle Embiid or Simmons. You see with other coaches, Mike D'Antoni, Harden, and Westbrook. He's not having a great time handling them, in my opinion. But look, Phil Jackson was the glue that held that team together. Before Phil Jackson, they had former Sixers player and former Sixers head coach Doug Collins as the Chicago Bulls head coach. They weren't winning with Doug. They just weren't. Phil comes in, he wins, he wins, he wins. It's ridiculous. He's best coach in NBA history, maybe even the best coach in sports history. He might have had the best rosters, but it's harder to keep stars together than it is to not keep them together. Or I mean, in my opinion, just Phil was just fantastic with stars.
I agree. Also with Scottie Pippen, he was upset with the Bulls and the fact that he was able to stay there, and Phil Jackson had a part of that in sort of keeping him there in Chicago. I think that it shows that he was able to work with his players and sort of assess what they needed and what they sort of wanted to do, as you mentioned with Dennis Rodman. So yeah, I think that's another key part as to why he's such a great coach.
I agree. Look, Phil Jackson, best coach in NBA history. Changed my mind. I don't think you can though. But we were talking about Rodman earlier. What was your favorite Rodman story from this documentary? Because as we learned, he was an animal on and off the court. So which one is your favorite?
I mean, obviously there's the Vegas story, which was, in the middle of like the regular season, he went to Vegas. But for me, it has to be when he went in the middle of the NBA Finals, and he missed a practice during the finals, not like a regular season practice during the finals, and the way that sort of like hit me as like, wow, like he really did that. Like he just didn't go to a practice during the finals, the biggest series of the season, and kind of like that's Dennis Rodman. That's his character. That's who he is. He didn't care. Like I'm not saying he didn't care about basketball, but he didn't care what other people had to think. And I respect him for how he expressed himself and how he sort of just went and did what he wanted to do. And I think that it's just pretty remarkable that he was able to do that and he was willing to do that.
I gotta go with Vegas. Look, he goes AWOL in Vegas. He says, you know what, I'm gonna go for I think it was 48 hours. Am
48
I
hours.
right? 48 hours, yeah. And then he stays for longer and he's hanging out with supermodels, he's hanging out with other famous people. And it's just crazy how back then, before social media, like no one actually knew where Dennis was in Vegas. But today you would have paparazzi taking pictures of Dennis, you'd have Twitter tweeting Dennis Rodman in Vegas, you'd have Instagram, you'd have Snapchat, you'd have everything going off. And it's just remarkable how that happened back then.
Yep, I
It's a
agree.
different era. All right, so let's talk a little thing. Let's talk a little bit about legacy. Whose legacy was most impacted by Michael Jordan?
I mean, I think Scottie Pippen, honestly, because I wouldn't say definitely in a good way because he was an amazing compliment to Scottie Pippen, to Michael Jordan, and to the Bulls, and obviously a huge, huge piece of their success. But I think that maybe if Michael Jordan wasn't there, we maybe would have seen even more of what Scottie Pippen could do. So I think that he would even be known as a better player had he not been playing with Michael Jordan, and he could have left Chicago if he wanted to. But I think it sort of shows how he, even though had problems with the Bulls, how he loved the Bulls, he wanted to play for the Bulls. Even through the problems, he was able to stay there, and that he frankly loved playing with Michael Jordan and that team. So I think that his legacy could have been better had he been somewhere else without Jordan, but I still think that he still had a phenomenal career, even playing next to Michael Jordan, the best ever.
I gotta go with Hakeem Olajuwon. Michael Jordan, he took 2 years off to play baseball. He had the first retirement. Goes plays baseball. Rockets win 2 chips.
Yeah,
Michael Jordan doesn't take those 2 years off. They honestly could have had 8 championships in a row. But Hakeem got his 2 championships. He moved way up on the greatest of all time ladder of players. His legacy was just completely changed from that. And I'm blown away by how crazy it was that he won 2 championships. He took advantage of Michael Jordan taking the time off. And look, Hakeem doesn't win those 2 championships. Is he even a top 20 player of all time? I can't even tell you. It
yeah,
would have been a much different conversation about Hakeem. But I also got to go with Patrick Ewing, another center, keeping on the
for
center.
sure, for sure.
Look, Knicks and Bulls had a big rivalry back then, and Michael Jordan just always beat Ewing, and Ewing never got that championship. And I think he did actually play the Rockets in one of those 2 championships, if I'm correct. And still, he still never won, and Ewing never won anything. So imagine if he had a championship under his belt, he'd be much higher on all-time greatest player list.
Yeah, and
Just Michael.
also, sorry, you can finish your point before I go.
No, you go.
Yeah, two other players that I would say had their legacy sort of affected would be Karl Malone and John Stockton with the Jazz losing at the end of the 6 championships back to back, and also could even throw Reggie Miller in there, how he lost to them in the playoffs. I think that you saw the Jazz had they forced that 6 championship series to a game 7, could they have won playing in Utah after coming back from being down? So yeah, I would think that those are two players that really had a chance to take down Jordan in both series, both times, and that they didn't. So I would say those are also two players that were hugely impacted by Jordan.
Yeah. The only time Ewing beat the Bulls was without Jordan. Jordan just had his number. And speaking of having numbers, every time Michael Jordan, like someone looked at Jordan the wrong way, someone trash talked Jordan, Jordan goes, I'm going to drop 30 on that guy. It didn't matter. It was like that guy on the Wizards who had 37, and he said,
Okay.
nice game, Mike. The next night, Michael goes off. or B.J. Armstrong, who was
He
a
didn't only
former,
go off. He said, I'm gonna score as much as he scored in the game in the first half.
and he did it. I
Exactly.
think he did more than he did. I think he had 38 or something.
He had 36 in the first half.
That's
36
just,
the next game of the home and home series with the Wizards, or not the Wizards, the Bullets at the time.
look. I even saw a report that Charles Barkley, now a former NBA player, Hall of Famer, TNT broadcaster, he was talking about Jordan as an executive on TNT, and him and Jordan haven't spoken since. I don't know the severity to that, but that's just crazy. Like, you could look at Michael in the wrong way, and he'd be like, "I'll drop 30 on you," or like something like that. Like, it's just crazy. He always followed up. It didn't matter who the person was. He just
Yep.
always followed up, as he
I
did with Byron Russell in the finals.
yeah. I mean, it's certainly something that you look at and you have to admire how competitive he was, how he wanted to attack you and basically slaughter you every game in and game out. And if he said he was going to do something, you knew he was going to do it. If
He
you
did
looked at
it
it the wrong way, you better be fearful for what's going to happen the next game because there's a storm coming for you with Michael Jordan.
perfectly said. Couldn't say it any better. And look, Jordan's work ethic is just some of the best I've ever seen in my life with any athlete, including like the greats like Tom Brady, Muhammad Ali, all those players. Just ridiculous. And he even pushed his teammates to be better. He might have been tough on them, but still, they won 6 chips. Like as you saw with that guy Scott Burrell, I think he was like a reserve for the Bulls. Mike pushed him and he said, I knew Scott could be good, so I had to push him because if Mike didn't show him the tough love that he did, Scott Burrell might have not had like a great season or something. Even though he wasn't a great player, Mike knew that he could have been an important part to the team.
You also saw with Steve Kerr's shot against the Jazz in the finals when Michael Jordan was like, they're going to bring the double team to me. We're going to need you to take this shot. I'm going to kick it to you. He trusted Steve Kerr, and then after the game, he said, Steve Kerr, he took that next step. He took the jump tonight. And I think that it's really something to admire how much he pushed his teammates to be the best that they could be. Not even just himself. He obviously pushed himself to be an incredible basketball player and worked his ass off. And he pushed his teammates equally as hard.
Look, let's talk a little bit about Steve Kerr because he's really interesting. He was a former NBA player. He's one of the best college basketball three-point shooters of all time. And now he's might be the best head coach in the NBA. Is Steve Kerr get enough credit for the Golden State Warriors?
I mean, I don't think so. Also, because the Warriors that's a super team. They're incredible, and I think that he sort of gets overlooked. And a lot of people say, "Oh, all he has to do is just stand on the sidelines." But I still think that he does a ton for that team. He's been with that team for a long time, and he sort of helped develop Steph Curry and Klay Thompson into that dynamic duo that they became, and eventually a championship winning duo. Not just one time, but three or four times. So yeah, I mean, he definitely gets overlooked in my opinion, and I wouldn't say he's an incredible coach on the same level as Phil Jackson, but I still think that he's a very, very, very good coach, and he's not like all-time discussion for best coaches, but I still think he's a great coach.
Yeah, I think he learned a lot from Phil, as we could tell.
Yeah, for sure.
And before Steve Kerr came as the head coach of the Warriors, they had Mark Jackson. I remember the Warriors lost in like I might have been the semifinals to the Spurs. Next year they're winning the championship. I think Steve Kerr helped a lot with Curry's development, Draymond's development. Back when they had Harrison Barnes, Klay Thompson, obviously. I think Steve Kerr's a very good coach who doesn't get enough credit that he deserves.
Yep, I agree. I agree for sure.
So sticking with today's NBA, which player reminds you the most of Jordan by their play style in today's NBA?
I mean, I wouldn't say play style for me, but I would say for as much heart as he gives Russell Westbrook, you see that guy. He wants to get a triple double every night. He plays with that same angerness to himself, or angriness to himself that Michael Jordan had, and he also wants to go out and attack you. And if you look at him the wrong way, he's going to come after you. He's certainly not as good as Michael Jordan was, and I still think Russell Westbrook's an incredible player. But yeah, I think that his attack mode, his also eagerness to play hard every night is something to sort of definitely admire.
Difference between him and Jordan? Jordan was in stat padding. Russ hasn't won anything in his career. He just stat pads. But the player for me is Kawhi Leonard. Look, Leonard is a fantastic player. He doesn't take a play off offense or defense. His work ethic is ridiculous. He might be a quiet guy, but Mike wasn't the loudest guy. But Kawhi and Jordan have such similar play styles. I'm not saying Kawhi and Jordan are close in like skill level or anything, but their play style is so similar just because of how powerful they are in offense and defense and how quickly they can take over a game. I got to go with Leonard, and I think he's the only like choice that you can give.
Yeah,
Westbrook,
I
I
think
don't know.
definitely their mid range game is definitely something that can be compared. How they're both so good with those like 16 to 20-foot shots, those little quick turnaround shots on the baseline. I think that's a very very similar aspect of their games.
Yeah, for sure. And so earlier we were talking about favorite Robin story. Let's talk about favorite Mike story, just because we're talking about him.
I mean, Michael Jordan, obviously, he he worked his ass off, and it was shown. And one thing that stood out to me was when he was filming Space Jam, and how he would film for a few hours each day, and then he would go into the gym and play against other NBA superstars, and he would work just as hard as they're working, if not probably harder. And he would play for 3 hours, and then he would go to bed. It'd be like midnight, and he'd wake up in 6 hours and go start filming again. And to me, that just stood out, and that shows that he didn't he didn't care that he was tired. He didn't care about getting rest. All he wanted to do was work. He wanted to play basketball. He wanted to keep going and keep pushing himself and even others around him. And I think that story really, really shows how willing he was to do what it took to win.
I got to go with the story after he lost to Detroit. He goes, I need to get stronger because Detroit obviously used to be the bad boys and they pushed Mike around that series. But Mike went back. He got the next day. His trainer goes, all right, I'll see you soon after vacation. Mike goes, what vacation? Calls his trainer next day. They're in the gym working
Yeah.
out. Mike bulks up over the summer, becomes a different player, and just he's much stronger. He's more aggressive. He's more physical. And that's just my favorite story. Mike just realized that he had his weaknesses and he was like, I don't want to have any weaknesses. I want to beat Detroit. I want to win a championship because this was before his first ring. And he went on to win 6 rings. That's my favorite Mike story by far.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a good example of Michael Jordan, how hard he worked.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Thank you so much for joining us today. Make sure you like, subscribe, and follow us on Instagram at _ Jacob and Jacob podcast.
Yep. Make sure to join us tomorrow. We should have another interview coming. And next week there'll be a bunch. So get excited. Like and subscribe. We're out.